I'm Sam Roberts of the New York Times, and welcome to the New York Times Close-Up. This week, CUNY historian David Nasaw joins us to discuss the relationship between the unconventional President-elect Donald Trump and the equally unconventional tech visionary Elon Musk. But first, my next guest has been at the forefront of New York City's biggest corruption cases. New York Times investigative journalist William K. Rashbaum broke the news of Mayor Adams' federal corruption scandal and his historic indictment. He joins us now with an update. Willie, just how much corruption is this administration involved with? It's hard to measure quantitatively. We have seen corruption before during the Koch administration, of course, during Jimmy Walker's administration. How corrupt is the Adams administration as far as we can tell? There has been no one actually convicted yet, as far as we know. A lot of charges swirling around. How much corruption is there?
Well, Sam, that's a really tough question to answer. We know that there is a welter of investigations that are churning around the mayor and people in his inner circle. And it is a level of investigative activity that I have not seen nor do I recall reading about anything this extensive in many, many years. You've got four federal investigations, including the one that resulted in charges against the mayor, and 3 others that focus on people around him. And then there's a state investigation being overseen by Manhattan District Attorney Alvin Bragg that's looking at leasing of city leasing that involves people in the mayor's inner circle.
Pretty powerful when it comes to the mayor himself, when investigators actually seizing the mayor's phone in a public setting. That's something that really was unprecedented as far as we know.
Yeah, I think that just the level of investigative activity is unprecedented. The level of the aggressiveness of the approach, I should say, is unprecedented in my memory. And you know, the level of the number of resignations of people close to the mayor is also, if not unprecedented, then certainly remarkable by any measure.
Is the mayor, as far as we can tell, cleaned house, whether at the orders or recommendation or pressure from Governor Hochul? Has he gotten rid of most of the people who were under suspicion?
Well, that's hard to say. We know what we know, and we know what we don't know, so to speak, or we know that there are things that we don't know. There are still people
that sounds like a Donald Rumsfeld answer, but okay.
Well, I'm doing my best, Donald Rumsfeld. There are people still close to the mayor, for example, in the leasing investigation I mentioned. Ingrid Lewis Martin, Jesse Hamilton. She is one of the mayor's. She is the mayor's top advisor, Ms. Lewis Martin, and Jesse Hamilton is I think a deputy commissioner or an assistant commissioner at DCAS who oversees leasing, a former state senator who is close to the mayor. They remain in their positions, but again, they haven't been convicted of any crimes, and there hasn't even been any sort of public statement of what they are being investigated for, as you know, one would not expect such a public statement. But Ms. Lewis Martin's phone was seized, her home was searched, and Mr. Hamilton also appears to be under scrutiny.
Willie, the investigation into the granting of the permit on the Turkish embassy, the Turkish diplomatic headquarters. Is there any indication, although that was clearly speeded up at the city's request, any indication that safety was actually sacrificed other than the matter was expedited?
You know, that's hard to say. We have no indication of that. I think that the very unusual arrangements that were made to allow the consulate or the building this high-rise building that houses the Turkish consulate, which is known as Turkey House, these arrangements provided for fire guards throughout the building in order for it to open. In other words, under normal circumstances, a building would pass inspection and it would open, but because of the concerns, the contractor or the Turkish government agreed to hire these fire guards that were essentially positioned in the building, throughout the building, I believe, in order to make sure that if for some reason the fire alarm or suppression systems failed, that there would be an awareness that there was a problem.
And I know, I recall that earlier story suggested that there were investigations involving other foreign governments. Is that still pending too?
Well, there were subpoenas that were grand jury subpoenas that from the Southern District that were served on City Hall and on the mayor and on the campaign in the summer that sought materials, communications, documents in connection with a total of, I think it was 5 or 6 countries in addition to Turkey. It was Uzbekistan, South Korea, China, and Israel, I believe.
Campaign financing is a major part of this investigation. The mayor received something like $10 million in public matching funds. Of course, not all of that $10 million is involved in the investigation. Do we have any sense of how closely the mayor himself was linked to fraud or faked contributions that led to that public match funds?
Well, there are a variety of allegations in the indictment that suggest he was well aware of foreign money coming into the campaign and that he was soliciting it. Indeed, in one instance, he was visiting Turkey, and he, according to the indictment, visited a businessman, and there was a discussion of the businessman providing a large sum of money to the campaign, although that donation or that money was never given.
And we have the unusual situation of a felon being elected now as president of the United States, coming up, I think, still for sentencing, unless that has been indefinitely postponed. What happens in that case, and does he remain a felon even if he is not sentenced, or what happens if the case is now put on hold or thrown out?
Well, it is sort of indefinitely suspended right now while the judge, I think, seeks to make a determination of how to proceed in the same way that the federal cases brought by the special counsel, Jack Smith, are in effect paused as his office seeks to determine how to unwind the cases and how to go forward. The case in Manhattan, the state case, as you point out, the former and future president was convicted in that case. His lawyers are seeking to have the conviction set aside for a variety of reasons. They had already sought to do so based on the Supreme Court's immunity ruling, which Mr. Trump's lawyers maintain would have prohibited parts of the evidence that the jury heard from being presented. So it's all pretty much up in the air right now.
But as of now, he remains a convicted felon.
As we sit here, he is, yes.
Willie Rashbaum of the New York Times, thank you for joining us. Coming up next, David Nasaw of City University on the relationship between Donald Trump and Elon Musk. The Donald Trump-Elon Musk alliance represents one of politics' most dramatic reversals, from calling Trump unfit in 2016 to being labeled a bullshit artist by Trump in 2022. Musk invested $130 million in Trump's successful 2024 campaign. His support has earned him a spot in Trump's inner circle, co-leadership in a new Department of Government Efficiency. Here to discuss what may lie ahead for the two men is New York Times opinion contributor and CUNY historian, Professor Emeritus David Nasaw. David, you wrote in the Times opinion section that this is part of a pattern of past wealthy contributors and presidents, a pattern that doesn't always work out very well.
It hasn't worked out in the past because the three rich moguls I know the most about are...
Who you've written about.
Who I've written about are Andrew Carnegie and William Randolph Hearst and Joseph P. Kennedy. They all contributed to Roosevelt campaigns. Carnegie to Teddy Roosevelt, and Hearst and Kennedy to Franklin Roosevelt's campaign. They expected to be rewarded with being named. Kennedy wanted to be Secretary of the Treasury. Hearst wanted to be advisor-in-chief. Carnegie wanted to almost move into the White House and direct foreign policy and bring in what he called a century of peace through disarmament, through arbitration treaties. None of it ever happened.
Why didn't it happen? Were they buying their way into influence, or did they think they shared the same ideas as the president? What raised their expectations?
They believed first that they deserved something. Hearst, Musk reaches lots and lots and lots of followers. We'll never know how many because the numbers are exaggerated. William Randolph Hearst in 1932 had 28 daily newspapers. He had radio stations, he had a newsreel, he had magazines. He reached, his newspapers alone, 1 out of every 4 Americans at some time. So he thought and was told by his friends and by Roosevelt's friends that he had helped elect Franklin Roosevelt. He also believed that he knew as much about America as any human being, and that it would be best for the country and the Roosevelt administration if he was called on a regular basis. As soon as the election, a day after the election, he sent Roosevelt a list of his cabinet suggestions. The next day, he sent Roosevelt his 11-point recovery plan to get out of the Depression. Roosevelt didn't respond.
Why wouldn't Roosevelt have humored him? I mean, first of all, were the suggestions any good?
Yeah.
But apart from that, why wouldn't Roosevelt at least have sent him a thank you note?
I think Roosevelt knew that he had to distance himself. What's going on with Musk is absolutely unprecedented because there have been donors, certainly since the McKinley election, where Mark Hanna brought together the wealthy throughout the country to defeat to defeat Bryan, the radical populist from the Midwest. But they kept quiet. They kept quiet. In recent times, you don't hear Soros talking or going on the campaign trail. You never heard the Koch brothers get up on stage and talk about their candidates. And they did it for two reasons. They didn't want to call attention to their money, but they also thought it might not help their candidates. Musk was different. There's never been anything like this. You know, when you look today at Musk appearing at Madison Square Garden rallies, jumping up on the stages in Pennsylvania, writing, up to 300 tweets or reposts a day, boosting the Trump candidacy, and then moving into Mar-a-Lago. I mean, this was never done before.
So how do you explain it? Is it his ego? Is it his striving for power? And what is that power for? Is it to save the country? Is it to create more efficiency in government, which certainly is needed? Or is it for personal, professional gain?
It's all of the above. I think you've nailed it, or you've nailed it several times. Musk has collected billions of dollars for his company, more than $15 billion to put his rockets and satellites in the air, billions for his Tesla cars and his Tesla charging stations.
And this is under
Federal
Democratic and Republican
Yeah,
administration.
this is, the Biden money that went to his projects was incredible. But there was one thing wrong for Mr. Musk. There were strings attached. There were strings attached. He had to do certain things. More than that, as the Biden administration took a look at what was going on, they asked questions and began investigations. He has been investigated by more than 30 government agencies. You name it, FAA, FTC, SEC, Justice Department, the Environmental Protection Agency. Every time one of his rockets is launched from Texas, it destroys the earth, the air, the water. So EPA says, you got to be careful. We're watching over you. Every time a Tesla crashes, somebody wants to know why, and the federal government investigates. And as we move forward into the AI era, in which Mr. Musk is going to be, he's already started a new company, he's going to be way out there. He doesn't want anyone to regulate what he's doing, to regulate his rockets, his launches, his robo-taxis, his self-driving cars. He wants to be left alone to send rockets to the Mars and electric cars on every highway with and without drivers.
We know he did a lot through Twitter or X to help elect Donald Trump. Donald Trump has a certain loyalty to people, although we know he has dumped a lot of people who have worked for him. You wrote that the Government Efficiency Commission, which he would head, you said, do you really believe that Trump is going to give you that? The answer is he did. In fact, he called it a department, which was maybe a little more highfalutin than it actually is. Why did Trump give him that, and what are the implications of that? What is it going to do?
These are questions without answers right now. Right now, the Department
And is that
of
such
Government,
a bad idea?
Well, the Department of Government Efficiency is all smoke and mirrors right now. It's not a government agency. It's not going to have any relationship to the government except as an advisory agency. Who's going to staff it? Who's going to fund it? And in the end, what's their final product? What have they been asked to do? Produce a report that'll come out a year and a half from now talking about what roles, what agencies, what staff should be cut. Now, Musk is a visionary, and he's also, let's not use the word liar, he's an over-promiser.
Well,
And
okay.
yeah, okay. He has said, has said publicly, can cut $2 trillion from federal spending. Federal spending right now is about $6 trillion.
So can he cut a third
He's
of the
gonna
budget?
cut a third only if he cuts into Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, and the defense budget. Now, Congress isn't going to let him do that.
Even a Republican Congress.
Nobody's going to let him do that. So what is he talking about? I think what he wants to eliminate are all of those agencies, the three-letter agencies that are overseeing his business and that are regulating his business. He wants to cut the staff and reduce the agenda of the EPA, the FAA, the FTC, the SEC, so that they'll leave him alone.
So what happens when he recommends this a year from now, whenever it is, and Trump gets this report? What does he do with it?
I don't know. I don't know. And I don't think Trump knows. I think Trump thinks short term. He doesn't think long term.
He's transactional.
He's transactional. And this wasn't his idea. Every government, every president comes in and says, I'm going to cut efficiency. I'm going to make the government more efficient. Everyone. But this idea of the Department of Government Efficiency came from Musk. When Musk interviewed Trump in August, he floated the idea 3 times. And Trump finally said, yeah, that's a good idea. You're the chief cutter. We need you to cut government waste. What it all means, we don't know.
David, you reviewed a couple of books earlier this year in the Times about immigration, the history of immigration to this country. What's different about immigration today compared to earlier in the 19th century, the end of the, and the beginning of the 20th century? Why are we so, or are we reacting so differently to immigration today than we did then? We always have been sort of, at best, ambivalent about it, haven't we?
Yeah, but I think what's going on now is immigration has been criminalized. Immigrants are no longer regarded as future Americans who are fleeing poverty and want to join in the democracy and the prosperity that defines America. Now, you know, part of the rhetoric refers to immigrants as criminals, as rapists, as murderers, as gang members. That's changed a lot. That's number one. Number two, the Biden administration and the Obama administration have failed, I think, have failed, and Congress has failed to define how we want to regulate our borders. I don't think anyone wants complete open borders. But the laws have not kept up with the onrush of immigrants who are fleeing poverty, who are fleeing crime, who want to participate in the American dream.
And that's different.
I think that's different. I think that's different. The criminalization of immigrants, the fears that have been provoked that they constitute a threat to American life is different. Plus, there's something else going on. People who have difficulty paying the rent or putting food on the table, when they're told that the government is spending billions of their taxpayer money to take care of migrants, of immigrants, they get angry.
Thanks to David Nasaw, CUNY Professor Emeritus and prize-winning author, for joining us. Up next, my thoughts on a former mayor. The indictment of New York's Eric Adams on public corruption charges has conjured up the scandalous Roaring Twenties embodied by Mayor Jimmy Walker. But in this, the third decade of the 21st century, with City Hall overwhelmed by intrusive challenges like the migrant influx and the after effects of a pandemic, New Yorkers are doing more deploring than roaring. Next year is the centennial of Jimmy Walker's election as New York City's chief executive. In a city where mayors like Eric Adams are barely tolerated, Jimmy Walker was idolized. Adams lacks the reservoir of goodwill that could easily have gotten Walker reelected after he was finally forced to resign during his second term. Walker was witty, self-effacing, glib. He was a humanist, far more compassionate and flawed too than pictured previously. He was elevated and condemned by his own character, created and ultimately consumed by his times. He evokes a counter-Trump, a dodgy philanderer who governed by making people feel good rather than angry. I'm a contrarian. Researching a book about him, I found that his first term was, by many measures, a success. He consolidated the hospital system, expanded the parks and bus service, benefiting a few friends who happened to own bus companies, began demolishing the dangerous street-level railroad tracks on Manhattan's West Side, and building the 8th Avenue subway. With the help of the United States Supreme Court, he froze the subway fare at a nickel. By the end of his first term, the New Yorker concluded that the mayor could, quote, point to a fairly impressive list of achievements. On the last day of his first term, Walker signed legislation that granted raises to the highest-ranking municipal worthies. When his own 40% pay hike to $40,000 was challenged, Walker was ready with a rejoinder that rang true to his constituents. Imagine what they'd have to pay me, he said, if I worked full-time. Walker never offered satisfying explanations of what he accepted when he described them as beneficences. The chief investigator, Judge Samuel Seabury, uncovered several dodgy quids, but no verifiable quos. As one newspaper editorial put it, Judge Seabury did not prove Walker took crooked money. He did prove Walker took easy money. Walker wanted to retire after one term, but hubris and the quest for vindication blinded him. In the fishbowl of City Hall, the scandals and the depression stripped the dapper mayor of his emperor's new clothes. For the New York Times and CUNY TV, I'm Sam Roberts. And don't forget to download the CUNY TV app. You can catch our weekly program on the go, anytime, anywhere.